An advisor to Ukraine's president, Vladimir Zelenskyy, has said weapons from Europe are taking too long to arrive in the country. It comes as Russia increases its attacks on the capital, Kyiv, with the Kremlin saying the number and scale will be ramped up. Our correspondent, Makin-Isherwood, is in the Latvian capital, Riga. Laura, explosions reported across Ukraine. What kind of areas is Russia targeting?
Well, we heard from the Kremlin over the last few days that it was thinking of ramping up the attacks it made on big cities across Ukraine, including Kyiv, of course, and there have been explosions heard in the city today, as well as those air raid sirens, those warnings being heard across the country. A couple of days ago, Russia claimed that it had hit a missile repair factory. Today, it said that it had hit an armoured vehicle production factory. So clearly trying to tackle those parts of the country, those factories and production areas that will help Ukraine in this war. We also understand from the UK Ministry of Defence that they say a lot of road infrastructure has been destroyed, bridges, and it's preventing humanitarian aid getting into the country and to the places that it's most needed. And so Russia seemingly continuing this attack. We've seen pictures as well of the Ukrainian defence forces carrying out drills around Kyiv in anticipation for further attacks on the city.
So the Kremlin has imposed sanctions banning UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson from entering Russia. What reason is Moscow given for that decision?
Yeah, Boris Johnson, also the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, as well as multiple other members of Boris Johnson's cabinet. Those three that I mentioned first are obviously some of the people that have been front and centre in the UK's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin saying that this is in effectively retaliation for the sanctions that the UK has imposed on Russia, preventing imports and exports, cracking down on the economy, freezing assets of many billionaires and oligarchs in the country as well. And the Kremlin also pointed towards the UK's support for offering military aid to Ukraine, supporting the Ukrainian defence forces on the ground, and they say cooperating with NATO in trying to push more weapons towards the country as well. Now, the Kremlin says that this list may expand further. It obviously comes a few weeks after they imposed similar sanctions banning the US President Joe Biden from the country and EU delegates as well. So I guess in time we'll see how wide this list is going to go, who else may be included on it.
All right, there's still some controversy over what caused the sinking of Russian missile cruiser Moskva in the Black Sea. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, US defence officials now saying that it does look more likely, in fact, that it was a Ukrainian missile or two that hit the Moskva when it was in the Black Sea, and that then caused, they think, that fire on board, the explosion, and then ultimately the ship's demise. Russia, of course, denying that that was the case, saying instead it was a fire that caught on board, that then caught onto ammunitions and caused an explosion. The reason for that fire they haven't given, saying they're still looking into it. They also said that the ship was still buoyant and was being taken to a port for repairs. There's been some questions around the crew of that ship as well. Of course, Russia said that there was an evacuation process that took place, the crew were rescued, but some people questioning just how many of those crew did make it back onto other vessels or indeed ashore. Now Russia's state news agency has said that the head of the Navy has met with some of those crew. That cannot be independently verified, of course, and there's been no pictures of that.
All right, Laura, how's the humanitarian situation in neighbouring countries as people continue to flee the Ukraine?
Yeah, millions of people trying to leave those cities that are worst affected, heading into the likes of Poland, also moving up through the Baltics as well to where I am in Latvia now. Around 30,000 people have arrived here. That's not really a patch on the millions that have ended up in Poland, but obviously gradually people are going to be moving around Europe and indeed to other nations as well, seeking a new life. And there's been mayors and leaders of cities and towns around Ukraine that are being affected that have essentially told people to leave quickly, to choose life, they say. And also for those that have made it out out already. They're saying, please don't come back. Clearly the situation on the ground is so extreme now. People cannot guarantee their safety. The attacks are continuing. Russian troops are continuing their push as well, of course, as they regather. And so it is becoming quite desperate. Humanitarian aid can't get there, and neither can supplies like food and water. So people being told to get out when they can.
All right, SABC News correspondent Laura Makin-Isherwood in Riga, Latvia, giving us an update on the situation there. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this evening.